Hello, everybody. Thanks for coming. Thanks for the mic. I think I could do it without that, but for the recording's sake, we need some amplification. So, welcome to the conference, the first panel. And I think this first session is something that could be interesting and useful for many of you as you come from different cities with a vivid music life. And we will be talking about the UNESCO Music Cities Network, which is a relatively new thing but very quickly developing. And I'm sure even if those of you who haven't heard about it might hear some familiar facts and familiar news, but I really believe that it's a network that many of your cities might want to join, or even if not join, they could join other other networks of creative industries, creative territories. So why we invited Tamara and Rainer from Katowice and Mannheim, kind of two pioneer cities of this network, is to tell us about how this network works, what are the benefits for the cities who participate, what are the requirements, what are expected from the cities who apply, and how it contributes to the development and the future visions of these cities. So let me introduce a bit more detailedly two guests. Tamara Kaminska is from Katowice. She is the head of the Katowice Music City application, the Music City project, also a deputy director of the Katowice City of Gardens, and many of you might have met her during the Katowice Womex edition last year. And Rainer Kern is representing Mannheim, including the mayor of Mannheim, and he's the head of the UNESCO Music City project of Mannheim. So I think we really have the best people here to talk about this issue. And as in every panel, first we'll have a kind of a panel talk here on the stage, and then we open it up for questions, but we are pretty flexible and informal, so you have questions that just can't wait, put your hands up or or give us a sign, and we'll make space for your questions. So let's start from the very basics. What is this network? There are more networks, not just the music network. There are more creative territories as well. So what are these territories, and what are the specifics of the Music City Network in UNESCO?
Maybe I will give the floor to Rainer, who is longer there in the network.
Am I?
You are.
Yeah. No, the longer story, the broader story, I guess we should hear that, is that UNESCO is working on cultural diversity around the world and keep cultural diversity for a very long time. And in 2004, they opened a declaration to foster cultural diversity in the world. So several countries signed that, Germany, for example. And to operationalize this target, they opened a network which they entitled the UNESCO Creative Cities Network to bring together so-called creative cities. We're not talking about what it means now. To meet in the network, to exchange and to work together also on the issue of cultural diversity. And when they started this UNESCO Creative Cities Network, UCCN, let's agree that I say UCCN, you know what it means, okay? Because it's such a long UNESCO Creative Cities Network, UCCN. So when they started this project, they defined 7 different categories. It's film, music, design, media arts, gastronomy, crafts and folk arts, and what did I forget? Did I say design? Film. Literature, sorry, literature, right. And music, like 7 categories. And whenever a city thinks they're good in one of these categories, and I specify that in a second, then they can apply. And this network started very slow, and now after it's the 12th year of this network, it consists of 196, now 182 cities in these different categories, and from 69 countries or something like that, or 96 countries around the world, and it was growing fast in the last year. So what is the idea, but what is more the bigger idea behind that? It has changed over the 12 years since the UCCN was started by UNESCO, and maybe I don't know what other questions you have. Maybe I don't talk too much now because it's a big issue. What I can tell you now, if you want, I can, but maybe we go further.
My part. So why it's so special? Because it's more about collaboration than about creative field. That there are 7, like Rainer just specified. But the thing is that we are trying to work together. So even though you're a creative city in a field of music, it doesn't mean that you cannot work with other cities from literature and others. And the other thing is that you don't have to be a capital city. You don't have to be a really enormous city. You can be middle-sized or even small city to become a creative city. So for us it was also very important. And what more about this network is that it's very global balanced. So we have cities from around the world. We have cities from Europe, but also from Africa, Australia, Asia. So that's also very, very unique.
I think you are the only one from Central and Eastern Europe, right?
And Krakow, in literature.
I mean the music network. So as a city, what do you benefit from being a part of this network? Have you, in your own experience, what have your cities benefited from joining this network? And what does the network offer for future cities who want to apply?
So to be honest, for us, it was a great excuse to create great research about music market in our city. So I feel that it was the biggest benefit of this because we spent a year with our musicians and our music industry just to ask questions and find answers or find more questions and to specify what we need. So it was the biggest benefit. And the other benefit is that you have natural partners. If you apply to Creative Europe, you have plenty of cities that can be your partner in a minute. If you want to exchange your musicians, you can make a call to other city, which is Creative City, and within this network, you can work with them. And as always, it's mostly about people. So you meet people who cares about music in our case, or who cares about literature. And that's really very interesting for us. And also to learn more about structures in different countries, in different cities, and also to exchange good practices. I know that it sounds maybe, it doesn't mean nothing like good practice, but in terms of us, there was a lot of projects that we exchange ideas and we use different patterns to cover our own problems. So that's the thing, and I suppose that Rainer can add something.
Yes, let me add. We have to defer different levels when we answer this question. First, what you expect, what you can do, and what UNESCO thinks you should do. And first of all, it's when we're talking here now in Budapest, in Europe, we are mostly involved into a European project. So if you're now involved in a worldwide project, it's really a different experience because the time zones are different. The budgets are even more different than within Europe, and the language problem is huge. So just to have a meeting, if it's a Skype meeting only, it's really a bigger issue than you're normally used to. So first you must keep into your mind it's a worldwide project, and that brings some contradiction with it, because the totally different budgets and even some approaches and even some silly things like different time zones makes it really different and difficult to come together. So, but that's exactly one of the aims UNESCO has, and still, if you go into the papers of UNESCO, you will find target number 1 is foster mobility of artists and cultural managers and people from the arts field, which is not trivial if you're talking about worldwide. So if we have sub-network meetings, as I said, this UCCN exists in 7 categories. So you have 7 sub-networks who work independently, and Tamara and me, we are chairing the sub-network of music currently. So even if you want to have a sub-network meeting on Skype, it's really difficult to find the right time and the right language. Because, for example, most of the African cities are only French-speaking and not English, and it sounds very easy, but it's not. So coming back to the question, what can you get out of that title? First of all, there is no money flowing from UNESCO to the city who has the title. The thing you get when you get the title is the title. You have the right to entitle your city UNESCO City of XYZ. And you can use the UNESCO sign, which is seriously described in which manner you can use it, but you can use it more or less. Not for commercial reason, but you can print it on your business card. And that's sometimes what cities do, print it on their business cards and nothing more. So it depends why, and that's the main question with all these titles. You must ask yourself, why do I want to have the title? And you can answer these questions differently. For example, you can say, I just want to have it for marketing reason. That's what some cities do, so they're not really interested in doing projects or develop something. And this is a problem. So some of the cities, when they get the title, you never see them at meetings. They don't answer emails. They don't communicate. They have the title. They print it on their business cards. That's it. So it's up. Just cut it down. It's up to you what you do with it. It's really up to you. There is a reporting system, but very weak. It's not really a control system. You can lose the title, but this is on a very long term, and we've never seen that. And we've been involved in introducing this system, but it's not really very strict. So more or less, you're totally open what you do with it, and it's up to you. You must be creative in doing that, and we can see good examples, and we can see not so good examples. And from my perspective, there is a lot of things to optimize. You can do a lot of things to optimize the whole thing, but it's also changing. And just to add one thing, as UNESCO is one of the UN sub-organizations, the whole idea of this project is pretty much connected to the big UN agendas and UN targets. So all the sub-targets of UNESCO are pretty much connected, and currently it's the so-called Sustainable Development Goals. I don't know whether you've heard about that, and the New Urban Agenda. These are the two main agendas of United Nations, and all sub-organizations, whether it's UNESCO, UN Habitat, or any others, are working on these agendas. And that's also what UNESCO wants the city to do, and I guess it's logical.
Yeah, we've heard about some bad examples as well, but I think that in an ideal case, if you put music in the heart of your city's strategy, that means that it should be somewhere there in kind of every long-term decision, not just cultural ones, but also urban development, education, local identity, branding, tourism. So music should be somewhere there in the background, at least, in all these decisions. And I think that well, we can say that both of your cities are the good examples, not the, not the bad one. I mean, yeah. So it's not just because you are here, but I mean there are facts and what we've seen from your cities. I mean there are really some of your projects really are considered to be the best practice projects. Like for example, I've been always jealous of the Pop Academy concept, how it is connected to the incubator approach. I mean, and the whole institution, it's a great one, and it inspires a lot others also in Europe. Or I've been always amazed by the amount of musical events in Katowice. It seems like every week there is a festival happening there, and also how music was used to transform an industrial city to kind of a modern city, more based on the cultural industries and not coal. So, could you tell me more about the story? How music, and inside that, how maybe this work or cooperation through UNESCO has helped to change your cities?
So, long story short, in 2010, Katowice was trying to get European Capital of Culture title, and we didn't get it, thanks God, to be honest, looking from our perspective today. And the thing is that Katowice is post-industrial city, mostly associated with heavy industry, coal mines, dirt, and nothing more. And with music, actually it took us 10 years to change this overview of the city, to change this image and to become a creative music city. And in our case, this title opened doors, to be honest also. So if you attend WOMEX last year, you know that for the first time in their history, there was additional logo of the leaflet. It was Creative City of Music logo. And they told us, and it's not a secret, that without this title, they wouldn't consider us as a host city, because we are not as big as Budapest, not as attractive as many different cities. So for us, actually, Rainer, he just raised this thing that it depends on you, how you use this title. Of course, you can get it, you can put it on your visit card, and you can do nothing with that. Or you can use it to open doors that probably would be closed without that. And what we've done in Katowice after those big researches, we decided that we'll create whole Katowice Music City project. And it's not only about festivals, which you've mentioned, but there is also about education. It's also about support young bands, like project which is called District Sounds Good. So each year we are helping 4 young bands from our city to release their first album, to have their first video session, to have their first concert, not only in our city, but also different. We also have educational project, which is dedicated not only to playing on instrument, but also to be more familiar with sounds, with behaving on concerts and things like that. So actually, it can open the door. It depends only on you. So it should be a wise decision. And if you want to be a part of that, you can use it. You have natural partners, as I've mentioned, and you can exchange many different practices, many different ways of doing things. So it's totally open, just like Rainer said. And the funny thing about our 2 cities is that we are very similar, like Mannheim and Katowice. Mannheim, they started many years before us, but when I'm in Mannheim, I feel like at home. And actually, when Rainer is in Katowice, he told me that he feels like home also. So that's the thing about us. Yeah, to appreciate what you have also, to appreciate how how much work you need to put to have all those things that you have now. So that's the point about Katowice.
Yes, the quite similar shape, the city. The beer is better in Katowice than in Mannheim. So, yeah, as Tamara said, we started in Mannheim with a music strategy earlier, and when we wrote the bid for the UNESCO title, for this UNESCO project, we started from a very high position, I can say. So everything was settled already and was already toured around the world to tell others. And this is interesting because when you start from a high position, it's then what you can then change and add on that is not that visible and not that spectacular maybe as getting to the high position was before. But we have some interesting smaller things which are big, I guess, and the UNESCO title and the UNESCO bid helped in that case. A young Turkish guy who came to Mannheim from East Turkey when he was very young, and then became a sociologist and a musician. He realized, like 10 years ago, that as he was interested in Eastern music culture, you cannot learn playing the oud in Mannheim, although like a third of the population is Turkish in Mannheim. But you cannot learn oud, although you have the high school for music, you have the music school run by the city, but you cannot learn to play oud or ney or whatever. So he founded and he entitled it Oriental Music Academy. And it was a private initiative, and he asked 2-3 friends whether they want to help him and join him. So he rented a room in an area in Mannheim, which was then later part of the music strategy. And he was extremely successful, and he connected it to social work in this district of Mannheim. Very practical. He saw when the European Union was more open, so a lot of people came to work in Mannheim. So there was a situation in his district, in his part of the city, and he just took the initiative. So he for me, he's a very good example when a private initiative can become an official thing. So the city saw that and tried to support, and then started to support him. And then everything became so professional. He's pretty much connected to all the big masters in Oriental music. He's saying Oriental music, which also means Indian music. That everything became so professional. And then he invited me for a talk and said, "Can you help us? We would like to become an official institution where you can study, like a university." So we started a project, and in that case the UNESCO bid helped a lot. And now you can study, it's called world music, and we all know the title. We don't say world music that often, but you can study world music now in the Pop Academy. That's one strand. And some interesting situations came out of that. For example, one of the big masters he was connected to ended up in a refugee camp in Mannheim 2-3 years ago, and could then be involved in this new project at the university. So we could help, and that was the idea in Mannheim, to internationalize our music strategy, because it was of course focused to Mannheim, and Mannheim tended to focus on the city itself and not go abroad. And so we take this title to internationalize, for internationalizing a strategy. And also we try to connect this to our other work with United Nations, UN Habitat. And again, it really depends on the targets of the city and of the shape of the city. As Tamara said, they used the UNESCO title to reshape the city through music. We've been already a bit further, but that's different.
As we heard, like this network consists of very diverse cities. It's a global network from all continents, different languages, absolutely different sizes, from small cities to metropolises. Musically, it's genre neutral, so it doesn't have any genre specific, but there are huge differences in GDP, cultural background, also size, capacities, whatever. So it's what are the requirements? How can you work out requirements for so different cities? What do you expect from a city when they want to join? And how can you expect kind of the same things from so different places?
I think you can expect the same things because this network is not about GDP, it's not about size, it's not about how much you achieve, but it's also about idea that you have and what you want to do in your city. So the applications consist of two parts. The first part it's what you have. So you need to describe what you achieve, what you have, what is your heritage. And the other part of the application, and for me, for example, because me and Rainer, we are responsible for evaluation also, which is more important, it's this part with ideas. So you need to propose 4 projects that you will, which you will be running in your city. So actually, I feel that, and the evaluation consists also on 2 stages. So there is one from experts and the other is from us. So I think that it's about all those goals that UNESCO has, like Agenda 2030, like New Urban Agenda. So you can find the same different solution on the same topic in different cities, and it's really not about size. We have small cities like Gdynia Nowa, and we have big cities like Kansas City. So it doesn't matter, and they are working together, and they still have a lot in common. So I suppose that it's not about that.
I think that's a very important question because organizations like UNESCO, and we fully support these organizations, just to make that clear. But a lot of these projects and initiatives, although they try to foster diversity, they tend to produce sameness. And that's a big issue, and so you should not expect that everyone is working as you are working. It's, as you said, a global network, and I think networking 2018 is different than networking 1978. So what I call you have to be strategic, opportunistic. That means you have to know who is in the network, who is doing what, and who is fit into your ideas, and who is coming into your way. Maybe and that's also a problem. Organizations like UNESCO are huge bureaucratic institutions and organizations. And bureaucracy, and I'm not against bureaucracy, but it's working with totally different mechanisms than creativity. So, and if you try to cross-link that's not very easy. And so you must be, the thing is, you're a creative city, then be creative. That means sometimes you have to go with the flow, sometimes you plan, sometimes you see an opportunity in the left corner there, then you take it, or you know you don't have the time now, you can't take it, but you keep it in your mind. So it's really, if you take this UCCN as a really strict, well-planned organization, then you get lost, because it's not possible. You have to be flexible, and you have to see the other, and you have to make you visible. And I guess that sometimes causes a lot of contradictions, and some things take time. But the opportunity is you're connected to cities around the world, and you have access on a very high level very fast. And I think that's a big opportunity, because as the world is coming, as we're all getting closer to each other, due to all the things we know, it's good to have access very fast. We did a project with Bogota in Colombia, and we can expect that sitting in Mannheim in Germany is not you pick up the phone and you call and then everything is flowing. It's not like that. But through this network, I could connect with a colleague, and things were easier than without knowing these people. So, but you must know, it's not when you go. I mean, you know that of course, but when you go to Colombia and Bogota, it's not Mannheim, Germany. It's different. And if you cannot accept that, that means people are not punctual like me, for example. I'm not punctual. I don't like that. So if you meet others, if you want to foster diversity, then you have to deal with diversity. And by the way, the dealing with diversity, that's urbanity, and it's all about urban development, as you said, and that's very right. So the base of this project is urban development through film, music, whatever.
There's one more thing. You cannot expect that you will be working with all of them. So in subnetwork meeting, subnetwork, music subnetwork, we now have 30 cities. It's impossible to work with all of them. So the thing is that you can always choose partners. You can always look at others and understand what they are doing and find the answer on your problems or your ideas. So that's one thing. And the other thing is that that's true. There is a lot of bureaucracy, but still I feel that we have a lot of freedom in subnetworks. So UNESCO as an organization, that's true. It's a lot of bureaucracy there, but actually we have a lot of freedom in our subnetworks. So it depends on us how we will be working, how it's going to work in our, for example, literature. They're very different. They're more bureaucracy than we are, I suppose. It's good for them. Maybe it's easier for them, but we work in a different way. And it's like common decision. We decided that we want to work this way. So that's the other thing.
Yes, and I would like to add something. As we see a lot of shifts around the world, we maybe don't like, and we have good reasons to be afraid of that, and it's everywhere in the world. And my festival just opened 3 days ago, and at the opening evening, my friend Matthias Brandt, he's the son of Willy Brandt, you know, of course, Willy Brandt, and Matthias is one of the most famous film actors in Germany, and he did an opening speech for this festival because it's the 20th edition, and he was talking about the role of culture and music and jazz in that case, because it's a jazz festival, in this situation. And what he said is, I guess, he was very right. He said we lost the ability to listen to others, to tell others our story, and to listen to others and hear their stories. So, because if I meet strangers and if I don't listen to them, they stay as strangers. And he said we must learn again to listen to other stories and to tell our stories. And that's, I guess that's very true for instance. And I would say being in such a network and dealing with the world brings you closer to the others and makes the whole thing more understandable. And I think that's one of the big advantages of a network like the one from UNESCO. And if you work and you see the problems, then you can understand better, because you also cause problems to them in the co-work.
Here in the room, there are mainly world music passionate professionals. A question from where?
If you don't mind, I would just be interested. If you apply, you are in the system. Is there a common platform where you can find each other? Is there a common platform where you can find the projects of these certain cities? Or how do you work really in real life? How do you look for a partner on a jazz conference or something like this?
So in terms of the network, we have also, of course, we have our common website, but usually we are using emails. That's the easiest way. So if you want to find a partner in a city, for example, now that's from very recent example, in Brno, I forget about them. There's one more music city in Eastern Europe. Yes, it's Brno. In Czech Republic. So they called me and they told me they have a big opening of their new Philharmony and they would like to invite journalists from Poland. And for me, it's very easy to find journalists in Poland and call them and ask them if they're interesting. So that's the easiest way of working. So, and actually, Rainer, he told one thing which is probably the most important. So it's always about people. Usually those active cities in the network are those cities where coordinator is active. So it's always like that. And even though if it's really very small city like Idania, Anova in Portugal, or even Amarante in Portugal, they are super active because people they're really very, very active, and they really want to work together. So that's the one thing. But there's different ways. You can always send someone to someone else. If you don't know any journalist in Poland, for example, you can give this person number to someone else who probably will know. So that's very, very easy way of doing things and very practical.
Yeah, the different subnetworks are differently organized. Some have their own platforms where they share projects, where they have like a market space, and UNESCO itself, they provide a very low level, let's say, platform where you can find contact addresses and email addresses. But yes, some projects, but it's as I said, it's very low level, and mostly it's like Tamara said, and that's what I mean when I said strategic, opportunistic. You have to yourself. You have to be active. So what is, I guess, important is you should come to the meetings. There's one annual meeting where all cities gather, and you have minimum 2 subnetwork meetings, and it's very important to go to these meetings, which again could be difficult because when sometimes these meetings are in Europe, sometimes they're in South America or in Asia. We have 51 Asian Pacific region cities, for example. So, but if you don't go there, you're not connected, or it's not personally, as Tamara said. It's very important. So, and that's maybe the biggest market space when the meetings, the personal meetings, and you talk and then you see and then you hear and you have presentations. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I have a question. As we all know, Europe is moving to the right in a political way. Not even Europe, also Brazil at the moment. The whole world. The whole world. It's a trend. If you don't like it or not, it's a trend. What can a city of music do about it, or is it not your task to do anything about it? Because if you do something, it's a political statement, and maybe you're not chosen as a city of music to be political active, or can you really act against whatever movement you don't like?
You want to answer? I will be the same.
Yeah, of course, this is a target, and it is a target because the UCCN, this network, is working under all the declarations of UNESCO, and they're of course against this movement. But the question you raised, that's the question: what can culture and the arts do against these movements, or can provide for society? And that's what I said when I mentioned the New Urban Agenda and the Sustainable Development Goals. It's not easy to answer your question, but of course it's a target, and I can see different tries to work against or to work for something, let's say. And yes, of course, it's a big discussion within our subnetwork and all the other subnetworks too, and the literature subnetworks. They're doing projects. We, for example, we initiated, and we have to work on that more, Tamara. Now we initiated a project, anti-racist songs, to produce a collection of anti-racist songs. I don't describe the project now, but that's all the 28 music cities would be involved in the first stage, and then we involve literature cities and other cities. So that's something so I cannot precisely answer your question, but it is a target, and we're constantly working on that. Yeah.
So I feel that for us should be more important. So political changes can be on the second place. On the first place, there are always social issues and social changes, which are mostly you can find them in this New Urban Agenda and Agenda 2030. So of course, we are trying to deal with many different situations with many different cities, and sometimes we agree because there are different cities in the same network. But I'm not so sure that it should be our main goal. The main goal should be to think about gender equality, about good level of education in all cities. So I feel that that's the main goal for us. But of course, personally, I understand you totally, but in terms of global network, we should think more about social issues. I feel so. It is. But I mean that the first place, it's always about social issues, and then political.
But that's the best work against the right movement, I guess, because this network is about cultural diversity, and populism is about you, and no one else. So, not you personally, you know what I mean. So, and I agree to what Tamara said. It's the work. It's connected to your question, but focusing other sub questions.
And the other thing is that we are trying always work pro something, not against. So I feel that it works better if you work for something, not against something.
Any other questions? Well, when we are just very well on time.
Wow, it's not in our style.
No. Chris.
Just one quick question, Ryan, maybe you touched on it a little bit at the beginning, but did you find that the achievement of the title gave you extra weight politically and especially financially, in that way that your projects, whatever they were, I know some of Reiner's, became therefore, because of the title, that the title automatically turned into increased cash flow for cultural diversity actions. So is this your experience?
So my experience is more on municipality level. So our mayor, when we asked him that we would like to be a part of this network, he decided that we will have dedicated budget to all those initiatives that we will put in the application. So, and we even put this sentence in the application that if we will receive this title, we will also have a budget to do all those initiatives that we put there. So on municipality level, for sure, we get additional budget, and it's still there. So we are in the network 4 years now, and still we have this budget for all those initiatives, and it's not changing. So it's good. It's good for the city to make sure that you'll be able to work on that. It's pointless to establish project and after a year decided that okay, the financing is done, so we cannot do nothing more. And the other thing is that we, together with Mannheim and Idania Anova, unfortunately we didn't get it, but we prepare application to EU, to Creative Europe, and probably we'll trying once again. But also you can, the other thing about UNESCO Creative Cities Network is that, like I told you and like I mentioned, that you have natural partners. So when you need international partners for your project, you can always call someone, and probably they will join you. So it's very easy to work on that, and it's very comfortable, to be honest.
Yeah, in the case of my city, no cash flow so far, and I don't expect it. It helped, the title, as I said, it helped to lift the Oriental Music Academy on the university level, but that was more very on a very low level, but it helped. But in Germany, so where it could help on the county level and the federal level, it's difficult because of the federalistic system in Germany. If I talk to the Minister for Culture on the county level, the nation level, and I know her personally, she says, yeah, but that's city business, this title. It's UNESCO City of Music, so it's not our responsibility, and that's due to the federalistic system, but we're trying to get in there, and I guess it could work, but so far no cash flow. It's really, that's a very good question, Chris, because a lot of people in the city, they expect a lot of cash flow. And although you're constantly saying during the bidding phase and after, there is no cash flow from UNESCO, they still expect it. But everyone, and I do not know every application that was written in Mannheim, can say we're doing this and that project in the UNESCO City of Music, and I have no information whether it worked sometimes or not. But from when I was involved, no cash flow from this title.
Actually, I forget about one thing. We received a grant from Ministry of Culture this year for our project also. So actually, it helped. And it was not exactly on this whole Music City project, but we decided that we will write an application on one specific project, and then we received the additional money. So it's the way of thinking and a way of doing things. Probably we wouldn't get it if I wrote there that we want money for the project from the city, but when we put it in this, because from this year we have this special sector in ministry, it is called Creative Sectors Department, and you can also apply it there, so yeah, I forget it. Actually, we are in a better...
Yeah, and the federalistic system in Germany is blocking this money flow.
Okay, any other questions?
Very short, if you have time. Did you see any increase in tourism in your city due to this and the projects what you organize?
Yes, we can.
Does that mean a direct cash flow increase? But you can go to the mayor and even say these are the results.
Actually, because it is a part of our strategy to bring few big events to our city, so we had WOMEX, as you know, and this year we had UNESCO Creative Cities annual meetings, so we brought all creative cities to our city, and yes, that's totally true, that city earn money on that, and that's maybe not directly, but in terms of economic impact, figures are quite impressive. So yes, that's also the way of doing things. And you can also invite people from your events during those events when they are there. So yeah.
Mannheim is 15 kilometers away from Heidelberg, which is the touristic spot #1 in Germany. So you can do whatever you want to do. You don't increase tourism in Mannheim. The Pope can move to Mannheim. No effect, I guess. Sorry? The Pope would help. Okay, I guess you're right. No, seriously, it's difficult. Tourism is a big target in Mannheim, but although I was kidding, it's really difficult because Heidelberg is next to us, and Mannheim is the old industrial town. 95% was destroyed after the Second World War, and then rebuilt, and not in a Baroque way. So, it's really difficult, but it's also a target, and I guess more visible activity coming out of the title, like festivals or a series of concerts from the Oriental Music Academy, for example, brings tourists to Mannheim, and the tourist situation was increasing the last years. But if it's connected to this or that, it's difficult to say. I guess the title plays a role, but not a big one, because really Heidelberg is next door, and that everyone's going there.
So, Katowice is 60 kilometers from Krakow, the biggest touristic spot in Poland. So it's not the reason, Rainer, sorry. But the truth is that we are not always touristic spot. That's true. But the only one way to bring people there is to have festivals, congresses, conferences. There's the only one way to bring people there, and actually it's happening. This year we will have this climate change conference also. So we decided that the only one way to bring people there and to introduce them to our city and let them decide it if they want to come back. Probably part of them, probably not, because like Rainer said, it's not Baroque city, definitely. But the thing is that you need to give those people chance to visit your city, and then they will decide if they want to come back.
We didn't say that we have literature cities in other neighborhoods.
Oh yeah, and Krakow is city of literature, and Heidelberg is city of literature as well. So it's quite big.
Okay.
We work together.
Yeah.
So you know already what to do if you want to apply for the Music Cities Network. You need to move close to a very popular touristic spot. Yeah.
In my opinion, it helps.
Maybe what is really important, if you would like to apply for a UNESCO title in this network, you must define for yourself why you're doing that, and it's important. The biggest target for UNESCO is that this is an overall holistic project in your city. That it's not when you would like to become a music city. It's not you need an opera house and 10 clubs and that's it. No, it has to be involved in on all different levels of urban development, from education to all strategies, social strategies, environmental strategies, all that. So, and if this plays a big role in your city development, in your urban development, then that's exactly what the project is about. So it's about urban development on all different levels.
So let this be the closing thought. Thank you very much. Tamara, Rainer, thank you for your questions and attention. And we'll continue after a short break with the EU panel, which will be about new development in EU music support platforms, which will be in half an hour. So, yeah, enjoy the break until. Thank you. And your attention just for 1 minute. During the break, a very nice artist, Mokush, will play here in the room. She will be at Womex showcasing this year. So this will be kind of a short preview of her Womex performance. So you'll be more prepared for Las Canarias in a few weeks. So let me introduce Mokush, and she'll start in a few minutes. So don't go far. Grab your cafes, be around, enjoy some music.
Okay.
na 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 la da repüj madár repüj menőságra repüj édes galambomnak gyönge vállára ülj. Na 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 ta da la da la 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 fa na la na na da la da vidd el madár, vidd el levelemet, vidd el apámnak s anyámnak, gyönge violámnak, nádam. Da na na da da vidd el madár, vidd el levelemet, vidd el apámnak s anyámnak, gyönge violámnak. Na na la 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 la. Repülj, madár, repülj, mennyságra repülj. Édes galambomnak gyönge vállára ül. kis madaram, ne szállj messze, ne hagyd el szívemet, ne szállj messze, ne menj el, ne hagyd el szívemet. Ne szállj messze, ne menj el, ne hagyd el szívemet, ne szállj messze, ne menj el, ne hagyd el szívemet. Csillagos az ég, de csillagos, rózsafa levele, de harmatos, rózsafa levele, szakadj rám, kedves édes rózsám, nézd rám. Csillagos az ég, csillagos, búszált a szívemre bánatos, akárhova hajtom fejemet, sehol nem találom szívemet. Da 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 da. Csillagos az ég, de csillagos, rózsafa levele, de harmatos, rózsafa levele, szakadj rám, kedves édes rózsám, nézd rám. Csillagos az ég, csillagos, húszált a szívemre bánatos, akárhova hajtom fejemet, sehol nem találom szívemet, 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 szívemet.
At Womex pretty soon. That will be a longer, more in-depth performance, but I think it was really good to get a preview of that one. And we will start the next panel with the Commissioner for Culture and other panelists in 2 minutes, so don't go anywhere. We are starting right now about the EU music support platforms. But anyway, I think the best sign that we can send for those colleagues outside is if we start. So, hello again, we are back with the next panel, which will be about the new European platforms, support schemes dedicated for music, or not just music, but also those that music can participate in. And let me introduce our panelists, guests. Starting from me, it's Christine Semba, representing Womex, Piranha Arts, international projects of Piranha. Virgo Sillama, representing here the European Music Export Exchange Network, but you also know him as the head of Music Estonia. EU Commissioner for Culture and a few other things, but Tibor Navracic, and CEO of MUPA, the Palace of Arts, the representative cultural center in Budapest, Csaba Kál. Thank you all for coming. So, I think why we had the intention to organize this panel this year is that in many senses this was a year of good or hopeful developments on the European level. This spring, the European Agenda for Music was adopted. The pilot phase of Music Moves Europe started. The European Music Exchange Network also developed a lot. And maybe you haven't heard too many things about these initiatives so far, but we really think you should have, or you should listen to this news, because these are opportunities for all of us. These are opportunities for the entire music sector and the world music sector inside. So yes, we want to discuss this, and also I have to mention that one of our panelists, Ruth Jacobi, the General Secretary of the European Music Council, had to cancel this morning. So she won't be with us, but her thoughts that she shared with us previously will be represented here through different panelists and also through representation that she sent. So let me start with Music Moves Europe and the next Creative Europe phase. I think that's what most of the people in the room are excited to hear about. What the music sector and the world music sector inside that can expect, how they can benefit from these opportunities, and what are they expected to do to be prepared and to be successful in these initiatives.
We use the same. Yes. Good, very ecological. So, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm a member of the European Commission, so it's my obligation to say that the future will be bright, of course, for music. But apart from that optimism, realistically, I think there is a quite impressive development in the links between music industry and music and the European integration. However awkward is this relation? Because for us, music is partly a very important element of culture, and me personally, I think that the most important characteristic of culture, from the point of view of decision making, more policy or policy making, is creating and keeping communities together. That's why it is very important for me. I mean, the culture and its societal use, if I can use this word, and the music is no doubt that one of the most efficient elements of keeping communities together, reinforcing communities or creating new communities. And given these societal challenges Europe facing now, I think we have to use this channel of social integration, of building up a more cohesive societies at European level. And probably that's why that's a good starting point for bringing together music and European policymakers or decision makers. We've done quite a lot so far in Creative Europe. Because in Creative Europe, which is the culture program of the European Union, I would say, it funds network activities, cross-border cooperation, and also some kind of actors' mobility or professionals' mobility. And so far, we've funded approximately 80 projects in Creative Europe with 500 million euros total in this multi-annual financial framework, which will end in 2020, at the end of December 2020. So we are preparing the new MFF, the new multi-annual financial framework, and the budget of the Creative Europe will be increased, and that's for sure. What is the European Commission's proposal is 1.85 billion euros for 7 years. It means half of the budget will go to media, because that's the traditional part of Creative Europe. Approximately 1/3 of this budget will go to cultural activities, and approximately 20% will go to professional mobility schemes. In the cultural stream, or in the cultural pocket, we would like to earmark and identify some specific programs for music industry. Partly because of these societal functions of culture, but on the other hand, because music is not only an important device for social integration, but it can be also one of the engines of the future European competitiveness via creative industries. We still probably the number ones in music industry or in creative industries in the world economic competition, and we would like to invest more in this strength of the European economies, which means that we want to fund more projects in music. That's why we funded and supported the preparatory action initiated by the European Parliament, Music Moves Europe, which is an excellent opportunity for us, for the bureaucrats who are not very familiar with all the branches and nitty-gritties of the music industry, to map up the main stakeholders, to link them together, and to make a cultural map of music industry, to decide which are the most promising perspectives in music industry, and of course setting up consultations, setting up expert groups, and also some pilot projects to investigate the future opportunities of the cooperation.
And but one of those projects is or will be done by the European Music Exchange Network in the European Music Export Strategy, I guess, and it includes almost every EU member country, I guess, about 20-something countries. Yeah. And I think this is one of the first kind of major musical networks in the EU framework. I mean, except those traditional ones like the European Music Council. So it's a relatively new initiative. How is it working? How do you see, where do you see it can develop, Virgo?
There's about 16 questions in your question. So I will try to, yeah, I will very briefly explain where we are now with the network, and then a few words of comments on the European Music Export Strategy, which is a project that will be kicking off next week, no, in 2 weeks in Brussels, in fact. So European Music Exporters Exchange Network, or EMEE, that we have now started to use the acronym, has been for some years already sort of an informal network of European music export organizations or export offices. We export offices actually don't like the word export office because we more like think exchange. You can't have it one way, it's always both ways. But it has become this label of music export office. This year has been the year that we have been in the process of formalizing as an international association based in Brussels. I never knew it will take that much time to set it up formally, but yesterday we received the sort of the registry number in Brussels. So yesterday we were formally born, with being in process for better part of the year. So that means that as of yesterday, we finally legally have founded the Association of European Music Exporters Exchange. There is currently 23 members from 21 countries. We have a system of one vote per one country, but then in some countries you need to have 2 offices. Well, Belgium is the most obvious one. They have always 2 offices for sure. Second one could be Italy, where one very new organization is sort of the national export office. The other one, a bit more older organization, is for region, the Puglia Sounds. Okay, so this is the organization. There's 23 organizations that from 21 countries will meet 3 times a year. The core mission of the organization or the association or network is to learn from each other, to strengthen our ability to boost our local music industry development through knowing each other. There's a lot of contact building there. We empower each other's programs through working with each other and so forth, which is, what European networks are made for. And it's true that we answered the call from European Commission to deliver a strategy. It's sort of a research study and a strategy for European music export. And this study and strategy needs to look into what is the European music export's potential to start exporting more and more outside of Europe. I mean, obviously we're doing it already, country by country and etc. But we all feel that we could do way more if we synchronize this, if we coordinate this. But first we need to understand where we are at the European level. And so this export strategy research that's going to take us a year has kind of 3 parts in it. The first part is a stock-taking exercise, which means we are going to seriously and in deep depth map out all the countries, all the export activities in each country, figure out what the challenges are, pick up the best practices, and then we can build on that policy recommendations, how to sort of build the entire European export strategy. We will have a conference in the middle to bring in stakeholders and also EU officials to discuss the preliminary findings and so forth. So that's going to take us a year, and we are going to kick off in 2 weeks, and that's going to be, for us, an extremely important journey, because that will allow us finally to move towards better understanding of European music export, not only music export, but music sector, how it works, and to at least compare it country by country a little bit. This has been a huge challenge for European market as a whole, to benchmark each country to each other. So in short, about 4 questions out of 16, that's for now.
Nice job, Virgo. And I've also mentioned this European agenda for music that was adopted this spring, and it was a kind of a policy work that was coordinated by the European Music Council. Christine was also one of the working group heads during this process, and she is also representing Womex here, and I think Womex is probably by now it's one of the oldest platforms in Europe, even if it's a private one and it wasn't meant to be born as a platform, but it became a very important platform, also kind of an export platform, also a market development platform. So in the course of the last 24, 25 years, even as a private enterprise, it started to fulfill a lot of kind of public tasks, public initiatives, and it becomes more a private-public initiative, cooperating with a lot of public institutions year by year, with cities, regional or national governments, different NGOs as well. How do you see WOMEC's role in this sense as a platform?
It's only one question, but it's a tough one. Yeah, I mean, WOMEC, okay, historically, maybe I go a little bit back. Yeah, that was meant to be a platform, definitely. That's why it was born, out of needs of stakeholders working in music and artists who were working maybe with music which were not so represented in the media. And it was in the 90s, it was even not internet. So how do you find out what's happening in the Balkan region, in Northern Europe, but also in Northern Africa, in Asia, etc. So that was way more challenging to find out what's happening, to find information, to find people who worked with. So that was out of a need. And it confirmed that it was, yeah, the idea of platform and meeting once a year and exchange was the right format, because it developed, as many of you know, because many of you are famous faces for Mexicans, to this event, which is in the meantime gathering together 90 countries, more or less. Yeah, it is the most international music professional event. It is still private, completely private, and still fighting to survive every year. But what happened? I think it was probably on an organic way, out of the need of the community. Also, some very special moves and decisions have been made. The first one being a traveling event. As many of you know also, it is extremely challenging to move this event every year to a different country. We are based in Berlin, but we move to different countries. Thank you to have hosted us. Katowice, thank you for having hosted us also. But it is every time extremely complicated because we have a lot of requirements in terms of production, in terms of spaces, in terms of venues, etc., but also in terms of how to make this event possible. It's where every time we have a new format or new partners helping us. It can be a city, it can be a region, it can be a national government. So we have every time a different format, how it helps financing WOMEC. And then our model is then we share the revenues with our local partners. And so far, it seems that our local partners were also happy, very happy about the results, because of course it has an economical impact. But also about the visibility it gives to certain regions. And our choices are definitely not going to countries and regions to show mainstream music, mainstream traditions, but it's the opposite. It's to put some spotlight in traditions, in culture, which are not so represented on the general medias anyway, but also in many festivals, in many platforms. So this is the aim, to show this absolute diversity we have in Europe, but also all over the world, and to create this exchange within Europe and with the rest of the world, not forgetting the diasporas. It is a very important point, and the showcases last night showed it also. You cannot disconnect traditions, diasporas, the tradition of diasporas living in different parts of Europe or other countries or the continent. What else I wanted to say about the challenges we have, maybe being a platform, or it is definitely more challenging presenting the music we work with than many other musics, maybe, again, because lack of representation in the media, in the mainstream, to lack of access. Even if some journalists here do a very good job in presenting and promoting these musics. Also because most of the time people will not understand the lyrics. They are sung in languages we don't understand, but we still appreciate the content, and we have also to know better what are the context to be able to appreciate. And also the fact that I don't like to say it's not commercial, because I don't think it is also a commercial genre, if we can call it a genre. But it is also important to make sure that audiences have access to this music. So I come from France originally, and definitely France is a very strong country in terms of having many festivals which are sponsored by a city, by a neighborhood, by a region, to provide, to display this diversity of genres of music, which can be traditional to the new forms mixed with electronic music, with new encounters. But yeah, the fact that it is extremely important that to facilitate the access to the audience. But before talking about the access, it's also, like Aina was saying, it's not easy to have education. Anybody can find classical guitar lessons, but how to find folk music education or music education coming from diaspora? Here again, we have some, I don't know, Sibelius academies here? Yeah. So they do a very good job in Finland about the folk music education, but it is not something you have everywhere. And sometimes you have to go to villages and learn from the old masters to learn the music. Yeah? So it's not so easy to access. And why is it so important? Because beside of the musical part, we have, like we were mentioning on the session before, the social part, the inclusive part of these musics we are working with is extremely important. You were talking about communities, and we feel that it is genres which are really strong in putting community together, in facilitating communication between communities. So beside of the artistical aspect, there are other aspects which are extremely strong. What else I say, just to finish for now, why I think, or we think we defend this music specifically, and why it is so important within a European perspective. Europe signed, as each country, the European Union, but also as a European Union signed the UNESCO Convention 2005, and it is also one of the priorities of the European foreign policy. And yeah, we are here to support it. So we can be asked, we are here for that, and sometimes we feel a little bit underrepresented.
Well, certainly these European structures are genre neutral in music, but of course we are in this room biased because most of us are world music aficionados, passionate professionals. But besides DIY artists, besides niche artists that we or export offices and other development agencies work with, there are like the big institutions like MIPA, that handle all kinds of music, all kinds of genres with different needs, different styles, different aesthetics, and different institutional backgrounds. What can a huge institution like yours, and there are in every country like representative, genre-neutral music palaces, what can you benefit from EU policies? What are your expectations towards the EU that could help your work?
Yeah, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. May I start? It's a very remarkable moment of my life when in Mupa a few years ago was a concert of Keith Jarrett. Keith Jarrett is in his oeuvre had a very interesting voyage in the music from the classical through the jazz everywhere. Of course, his grandmother was Hungarian, it's, no doubt. And after a very, very successful concert when he played inspirations by Debussy, Ravel, and Bartók, after the sixth encore, he said, silent. And he had a message to us, please save your culture. And I think so, it's a very important message for the Hungarian and European, not only the heritage side of our music culture, because this is the oldest music industry in the world, because since 400 years we are in a kind of music industry. And this kind of big institutions like MUPA or Barbican Center or other big concert halls are saving this tradition, and we are all this fabric of the music. But we have to concentrate very much to the content. How can we save or regard our culture, and how can we create from this heritage our age music or our age art, and how can we involve the youngsters to this influence? These are the three questions. Of course, every big performing arts center and concert hall has a strategy for this kind of things. I can say we have two levels for this, and the first level is the institutional level. We are the members of the European Concert Hall organizations, which is the 21 biggest concert hall in Europe, from Philharmonie de Paris through the big Vienna concert halls, London Barbican, and so on. And we are concentrating how can we industrialize this music market. This is very important. We are making collaborations and co-productions to create new stars, because since when collapsed the traditional recording business and started the new influence through the internet, we lost a lot of advertisement for the stars, and we, big institutions, can create new stars. We have not so much force, but this is very, very important to have support to create new stars, because without stars, the system is not working very well. And also, it's very important what kind of stars we would like to support by these institutions, by the programming. Of course, from our countries and from Europe, real big stars, because this is the way how can we save our culture, by European talents, by new European influence. Of course, there is a big fight between the so-called popular music and mass culture and mass media, because it's very difficult to fight with them. Hollywood is very strong, and we have now tools to fight with them on the field of advertisements and to create stars, because there is a big Hollywood movie, big movie stars, big music stars. It's all together. It's very, very strong, and there is a heavy media tools opposite us. But somehow we have to figure out how can we show our stars. And these stars are very important because they are presenting the art of our countries, of our feelings, and the feelings and thinking of the European man. This is very important, and you have to know as commissioner, here is a background who is thinking about the European content. And the second level, this is the festival level. We as MUPA are the creator, together with Hangvető, for example, this Budapest Ritmo festival. And this is a very important thing. 3 years ago, we organized this brand new festival. We organized a big festival and a kind of umbrella festival. It's Café Budapest. Now we are going, Mr. Commissioner, to open it at 6 o'clock. And the Ritmo is one of the children of this festival, because together we figure out we have to concentrate something new movement. What is open a lot of way to create new productions and open for the audience here in Budapest. It's a very important point of Budapest because our musical heritage is very strong. The Café Budapest focusing always the oeuvre and the connection of Béla Bartók heritage. And Béla Bartók, you who are coming from the world music, used to say he was the first world musician of, of the music history. And really important, this Budapest Ritmo Festival is collecting real European values because it's try to find those moments of the European folk music or world music which are really valuable. And this is a very, very important direction. Shortly, these two things are industrial in our music industry. No, thank you.
Thank you. And you referred to Hollywood, and you also mentioned that 50% of the cultural budget goes to the media program, which is, maybe not everybody knows that, but that's the film support program. And behind this film support program, historically, it goes back to a long time already. There was always this sort of supporting European films as opposed to the mainstream Hollywood influence or the uniformed Hollywood aesthetics. Probably many would argue that also in music there are a lot of European values as opposed to the fast-moving consumer music of the mainstream media industry. But supporting music can have a lot of background ambitions. It can be because of the economic value it creates. It can be for political reasons, in the sense to support and maintain identities, national, local, regional identities, or to sustain languages, dialects, cultural heritage, or there are the educational community values, and even it's not just about music, music is about the quality of life, as we like to say it, not just listening to that, but also participating at any level. So which are the main ambitions of the EU when you are thinking about how you can support music, and so which are the most important ones from the potential ones?
Thank you very much. All of those topics you just mentioned, starting with the multilingualism up to education, is a part of my portfolio. So I'm at home. Well, and it is difficult to say which is the absolute priority for me, because of course I have to be unbiased when I'm handling all the issues and the conflicts inside my portfolio: education, youth, culture, sport, and all these subtopics which are as relevant as the big topics if you take a community on the ground. For me, what is important is the European added value, which means translate it to an everyday language is the cross-border cooperation, or cross-community or inter-community cooperation in a cross-border perspective, because traditionally and legally, culture, and also of course the funding music industry's activities, belongs to the exclusive competence of the member states, and they are really jealous to preserve it, because they know that it's one of the pillars of the national identity, local identity, regional identity, national culture, but also local and regional culture. So they are really surveying every activities of the European Commission. So what a European added value can be is the cross-border dimension. I mean, funding those activities which is simply impossible to fund at national level, or very cumbersome to fund, because it needs bilateral diplomatic negotiations and so on and so forth. And that's why Creative Europe, the Creative Europe's mission is to generate this cross-border cooperation, even at local level. I mean, even in education, we have the e-twinning project, for instance, which brings together schools for making a common project. Estonia is very active in e-twinning, for instance. Hungary, unfortunately, is not so active, probably because of the linguistic barriers, and that's a very important barrier which can be also relevant in music industry and in the cross-border cooperation. And what is important for us, it's probably a little bit farther from the proper music industry's topics, but it's the copyright reform, which has been one of the most important and hottest topics of European legislation. We now put an end, and I think it's a quite honest and good deal. We could preserve and protect the European model of the copyright systems, because there were a lot of people, MEPs, but also politicians, even inside the European Commission, who wanted to introduce the American model into the European copyright systems. And I think the remuneration of the creators are probably the most important fundamental issue from the point of view of the future, because if there's no money, there's no funding, there's no income, personal income, there will be no inspiration for future pieces of arts or songs or even festivals and so on and so forth. So we do a lot, but what we can do is only setting up a framework. For instance, this year is the European Year of Cultural Heritage. But it's up to the local communities, up to the creators, how can harness these synergies, how can use these opportunities, and how can build up networks which can be relevant from a European perspective. So I can tell you the most important for me is the cross-border cooperation, the European added value, because that's what makes the European cultural policy really European. So
this also means that the music moves Europe applications or structures will also be targeting cross-border projects exclusively. So what are the players in this sector, world music sector? What should they expect and what should they do to be able to apply and be successful at those projects? Like, you know, a quick practical manual how to win. No, I'm kidding, but yes, of course. But yeah, just because I know that a lot of our experienced applicants and a lot has just no courage to try it at all, and I think it's worth encouraging everybody to try.
Well, I think at first instance it's the workshops, usually the well-known examples of cross-border cooperation, joint workshops, conferences, exchange of ideas, joint projects. And I would emphasize that cross-border cooperation doesn't mean international cooperation. So it doesn't need to happen at national level. I mean, it doesn't mean that the Estonian music industry must cooperate with the French music industry, for instance. Moreover, in other areas of my portfolio, I prefer local, I would say, inter-community cooperations, because I think everything which is important for Europe happens at local level. Those are the local communities, the NGOs, the artistic groups, the local workshops, which can really bring a European added value if they cooperate. So it's not a formal diplomatic or protocolar cooperation of different big companies, but I would prefer creative communities, NGOs, local groups, local communities, because that's what is Europe.
Can I add a comment to this? Because I've worked in Estonia a lot in funding bodies as well, and sort of sat on committees, and this thing comes up all the time, that so many people think that if only we could reach the European funds. And there's, I think, a very important difference between trying to use European funds to make work something that doesn't work locally. I think that never works. As opposed to taking something that works locally and then trying to build on it, sort of cross-border or international, inter-community, etc., etc. So I think that's a really crucial difference between what do we want these big funds to do? Do we want them to sort of cover up the fix for something that doesn't work? Let's say we do concerts, there's nobody in the concert hall, so we try to get funding to pay everybody anyway. That doesn't fix the problem that there's no audience, and etc., etc. So I think when looking from a small peripheral country in Europe, the challenge for us to take more, and we haven't been very active in Creative Europe, and it's not because of lack of courage, it's because of lack of local infrastructure to empower the NGOs, the small companies, the organizations to really work in it. And I think it's our local job then to also on the side build that infrastructure, so to be ready more to enter into the system of Creative Europe. And this is something that, you know, the European level can't really do for us, so we have to figure that out on our own. So that's kind of my look from the tiny edge of Europe.
Very wise advice, I guess. Let's have just a very brief few thoughts about the European agenda for music. I think it's more or less known in the industry already, and the whole initiative, the whole material is online. But we should at least briefly direct some attention to it, because we have to finish very soon. You need to go and open the Cafe Festival or Umbrella Festival. So, and we still need some questions as well. So, Christine, would you just direct the people to read the European Agenda for Music?
Yeah, okay, the European Agenda for Music is an initiative of the European Music Council. I was leading one of the working groups, but we were a very broad range of people contributing, and there were also some public questionnaires, etc. So it was a pretty broad approach, and it was presented in many industry events and conferences. The first final version was presented in March in Brussels. You can find it online. It's European Agenda for Music.eu. And you can see everything. It's a little bit, the idea is to give a little bit of guidances to the policymakers. What is the situation? What are the needs of stakeholders of the music sector? It goes from music education to many other fields. I will not detail that. You can see that. Maybe the important point is in this phase now it has been translated into several European languages, not all of them so far. And I think it is important to use it as a tool. Each of us can use it as a tool on different levels. It can be on city level, on regional level, etc. But it's a good tool to be used to defend our work on different activities, on different sectors. And also, I don't see it, and I know the European Music Council don't see it as a finished product. It's of course something which is supposed to evolve with the time and the needs. And so it is something to aim to stay alive and still be nourished and updated. For those who come to WOMEX, it's going to be a presentation. It was one last year. It's going to be a presentation about the update of this first version of this year. Yeah, if you want more information, you can ask me afterwards.
Okay, I think we have time for one question, so the quickest will win if you really have. But I think we've got a lot of information to read about. Most of these initiatives you can read over, and maybe it's better if we just close this session down so you can open the festival in half an hour at another venue. So, but if there is really something urgent, this is the time. But with Virgo and Christine, you will be able to discuss things further during the night and tomorrow. And yeah, Tony, the closest from ourselves to EU, Bozar, Brussels.
A question from Brussels. I'm working in Brussels. Actually, we are doing the Emerging Stars program, coordinating for that. And when I heard the commissioner saying that, okay, we talk to the industry, to the stakeholders, and see what we can do, I had one little fear as presenting this little work music sector. How can you come to a balance in the music genres? Will it not come that, okay, the Eurovision Song Contest brings all people together, so we sponsor that, and the local folk groups are less important in that? How you think reaching a balance between these big things and the local?
That's a good question, because I don't know if I can strike balance in education or in sport. I usually follow my taste, and I try to convince my services to follow me, which is, because you come from Brussels, it's not very easy, because the EU's internal complexity, I think, is compatible with the Belgian state's internal complexity. So I think that there must be a dynamic balance. I mean, because usually the balance shifts towards this end or that end. Of course, those areas which are more profitable or more showbiz-like will get less, I would say. Of course, you're right. The Eurosong contest can create communities via telephone lines and via mobile phones and via voting, but I wouldn't put it on equal footing with the local communities. or with those creative communities who really can discover or rediscover cultural heritage, for instance, preserve it and transmit it to future generations, or transmit it to other communities. So it's, of course, it's up to the expert panels and up to the calls. How can we strike a balance? But I would say that there must be a balance in a timeline. So if we gauge every moment where is it a balance, probably there will not be a balance. There will be a shifting movement. But I think it's absolutely impossible to keep the balance absolutely unmovable, or how to say, because who knows in 5 years what will be the important new topic or challenge in music industry. We are just launching the next multi-annual financial framework in January 2021. I will not be a commissioner at that time, so I'm just passing this duty to my successor. Probably in 2021 there will be something revolutionary new in music industry, or a very, very stark challenge to creators. I don't know yet. So the decision makers and you have to keep the balance in the decision making processes and the funding activities, I think. So I have no good and consolating answer to that question.
Thank you, and thank you for coming. Thank you for watching and being with us. And yeah, let's hope the best. And keep up the work that we've been doing anyway, and that we love. Thank you, and please open the festival so we can enjoy some music later on.
Okay, the last session, discussion, whatever, conference for today. I hope everybody is still awake, because it's already the third conference. Let me introduce myself. Bastiaan Springer, freelance journalist for several magazines, among others, The Songlines, Folk Roots, F-Roots, Afropop Worldwide. I'm also working for the national radio and DJing. But it's not about me, it's about the theme, the last theme. It's about the Central Asian music market. And we have 4 people in the panel. They come from all different countries. So it must be interesting. First, I just mention their name, and then they're going to do their own introduction. Tony van der Eken from Belgium, Aaron Tsilagia from Hungary, Dariana Antipova, and Husnidin Ato from Uzbekistan. And I think it's the best if everybody just make a short introduction about who they are. And then we start with the panel, with the discussion. We're going to talk about Central Asia. What has Central Asia to offer, and what are the obstacles? Who are the major exportable artists, if we know any major artists from Asia? Maybe some said, well, I don't have a clue, but here are the experts. Who are the main players? We talk about festivals, agency, venues, and how can Eastern Europe connect to the region? And maybe a question I just came up with: is there anything like we have the European Music Export Exchange Network, but is there anything like this in Asia, like an Asian cooperation, what we are doing now in Europe? Okay, but first, introduction. Everybody can introduce himself. Tony.
I work in a cultural center, a large cultural center in Brussels, and we are presenting, amongst others, of course, Asian music, well, since 1990 on several occasions, and we are developing it and projecting in the near future to present a lot more from that region.
Hi, good evening. Well, probably I'm the odd one out here because I have done a couple of tours in Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, did a winter tour in Yakutia, Northeast Siberia, which is not Central Asia, but still a Turk country, and the situation is kind of similar. And so from the musician's point of view, and how to organize a tour like that, how to make an independent tour in countries like this, I have some experience in this, and I hope that yeah, we can learn a lot from each other.
Hi, I'm actually also from Siberian part of Russia, so I mostly know about the situation there, about the main artists who travel abroad, who travel to China, Kazakhstan, some other stan countries. We call them right. So, so everything like a few things. So I was a drum player in my band Vidan Kalod, and the first trip ever abroad, it was to Budapest, actually to Pécs in 2000 something 9, because it was a European culture. Pécs was capital of. So it was the first time we were abroad, and we were, jumping with money in Budapest, and we were very happy. Next time I was here in 2015 with Womax, when we decided swimming in Gellert under the sky. We decided to organize this Russian World Music Awards. So maybe this time, it's going to be also a huge jump somewhere to a new project, and so. Yeah.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is here written Snudin Ato from Uzbekistan. I'm a traditional music promoter from Uzbekistan and building the network of Central Asia called KAKAN, and it means Central Asian Culture and Arts Network. And also I'm consultor of the festival in Samarkand, the biggest festival in Central Asia. Last 20 years, it's Sharq Tranlare, which means Orient Melodies Festival. And yeah, and here we will try to talk about this, how we can contact Central Asia with all around the world, with the people, with specialists, musicians and musicologists and festivals.
I make the round. Tony, I know you have been to Iran, you have been to other countries. What is your experience working with artists from Central Asia? Is it different? What are the obstacles, and what can we improve to have more artists from Central Asia to let's say Europe? And because I noticed that in Holland, I'm from Amsterdam, we have a lot of African artists, Mali, Senegal, no problem. But Asia is a different region, and I mean, it's so big and you have so much variety. What is your experience, and what can we learn from each other to have more artists from Asia or Central Asia to bring them to Europe?
Well, let me say how in the experience since the 1990s, how we were able to present artists from there. In the 1990s, there was a network that had promoters from Germany, France, Geneva, Belgium, Holland, who really were interested in presenting that music. For Holland, it was especially Raza who was presented, and people were really looking on a regular basis to bring artists from that region. The way we did it was, well, rather academic. We asked musicologists who knew the region, what they thought it was interesting. So there's like one French musicologist, Jean During, who is almost permanently there, studied there, and he advised what artists could be brought, and he arranged also the contact with the artist. And this was a network that was, you say, oh, you want to bring something from that country? Okay, that musicologist has been working there. Taraf del Haidu, oh yes, that region is that musicologist. So it was like the world was divided between musicologists, and you ask the right one and don't ask the other one on it today. So that was in the 80s, 90s. Then beginning 2000 there came a large project from the United States with Yo-Yo Ma. And he made a Silk Road project, and on his tour, he's very famous in classical music. He can fill the main halls here everywhere twice. So he said, I only will come with that Silk Road project if you present at least 5 other projects. Otherwise, we will not come. And in his Silk Road project, he gave the voice to a lot of Asian artists, composers, singers, soloists. And so there was a construction on that, and we made people, travelers who came to talk, reports on the politics, the food, and concerts with musicians from Korea till Turkey in that Silk Road project. That project has continued. And comes on a not so regular basis from time to time, but the Silk Road project and the artists from Asia working together is still existing and still evolving. Then you have places like Paris, Théâtre de la Ville, who is bringing on a quite regular basis artists from Kazakhstan, from Azerbaijan, from other countries from the region. They are open in sharing it, but they work a lot through official agencies. And then you have possibilities with exchange, with embassies, with institutions, and you have some kind of, let's say, national artists who represent these countries who are available. And you have some individuals like Munujatul Chiva, who has an agent who can be organized. There used to be, but long time ago, Yıldız Usmanova, who was in the pop music and very popular and opening it till a certain moment. She didn't perform anymore. So this is the ways we trying to work with it, and most of it is not directly with the artists of the country. Mostly it is with projects who are available or other promoters who are working on it. I've been traveling in Kazakhstan and Mongolia and Iran, and there's more to see what is available, what is happening there, how music is lived, experienced there, than to say, okay, we go and discover music or musician. For that you need other people to direct you to it. Yeah. Okay.
Well, we can make it round.
I'm specialized on a very special type of music. I play the Jews harp or Joe harp, or call it whatever you like, and it is komus, Temir komus, vargan. And my experience is that if you are specialized on something and you find a link to the culture where you want to do exchange with, their eyes go wide open, and they really want to do some cooperation. And that's the way how I also invited Yakut and Kazakh musicians to Hungary, because of this instrument. And that was also the connection to go to Yakutia and Kyrgyzstan and Kazakhstan, that I play a traditional Hungarian instrument that is also traditional in their own countries. They believe that's their own musical instrument. We believe that's our own musical instrument. And when it turns out that's actually mutual a mutual heritage. It's something that they really convince their own thing, and someone from Europe plays their own traditional instrument in a way that they haven't really heard before. That's a very good point to connect. And as a musical instrument museum director, I have connections to all the musical instrument museums, or to many musical instrument museums in Central Asia. And that's also a great opportunity to organize not mainstream artists, but independent artists, moving independent artists on a small scale between these countries. And that's how I met and I discovered artists in Kyrgyzstan and who do crazy things, like very, very good things that you never see on telly, that you don't hear on radio, because they are undiscovered, but they were known, and they were known in a very small circle. But I really wanted to bring them to Hungary and show them that, come on, it's possible to make like ancient music with the vargan, with the Jews harp, and beatbox together, or things like that. And yeah, it's and bringing Central Asian culture closer to young people here. Because if you want to be honest, as for my experience, traditional classical music from Central Asia is not very much appealing to masses of young people. I think it's a problem, and you have to find a way to get it closer to the young people. And I'm working on very small scale, working with independent artists, working with underground artists, and as I say, it works. It really works. Can I pass it on? Yeah.
Actually, I already forgot the question, but yes, I have. I prepared. I don't know. I just wrote everything down. So I'll try to be fast. So in Siberia, we have a lot of folk musicians. It's not like we have only 2 or 3 bands. Maybe who you know from Siberia? You know. Hunhurtu, right? Huh? Yeah, okay. So you see, and for example, Hunhurtu is from Tver Republic. If you go to Tver Republic, everyone near the, I don't know, everyone sings throat singing all the time. So after 2 days in Tver, you're so tired of musicians and throat singing, so you're just leaving this place. It's like, oh my God, I'll never listen to this again. So there are so many musicians everywhere in Altai region. So there is an Altai Kai group, one of my favorite. In Tver we have Alash and Hunhurtu. Then in Buryatia now there are 2 bands who are traveling abroad all the time, Shono and Namgar. So Namgar, she's like a secret woman from Siberia. She lives in Moscow, but she knows everyone. So if you want to go to Norway, to some festival in Norway, there is no like straight way to go there. You have to ask Namgar, because she's, sending groups from Russia. If you go to China, if you want to go to China, they first ask Namgar about your possibility to play on the stage. So it's like a Russian queen of folk music. So the biggest problem is they don't speak English, like at all. Only 1% of folk musicians in Russia speak English. So that's why it's the biggest problem for us, I guess. And what else? The second problem is that if you're a Asian Siberian musician, there is a possibility to go to Kazakhstan to Tengri Festival, for example. You can go to Tajikistan, to Azerbaijan, to Armenia, but only if you're a Asian. So, for example, I have folk band which is Russian but from Siberia, and this is very complicated to explain why. So, when we were I was trying to apply to Tajikistan, to Azerbaijan, to all these countries because, because I think this is a huge, market. I thought about it, like a new market. So why I have to break walls to go to Germany, which is like fine. I think everything is fine there. If we can just go to Azerbaijan, for example. And the promoters and festival directors said that there is no way to reach their market because they have sponsors for each band. So they have to somehow to talk to sponsors. It's like, we want to bring this band. Do we want to pay for their tickets and for their fees? And there is no way they are going to invite Russian bands. For some reason, because USSR, former republics, and so on and so on. Even if my generation has no idea what kind of former USSR republics are in the world, like Russia, somewhere America, and everything else is just empty. I mean, for our generation, what else? This is another thing is just traveling things. So you can't apply for grants for money, even to cover your travel expenses in Siberia, because when I was younger and I was too naive, I was trying to get this. I went to our Ministry of Culture a few times. I was applying for grants and so on, and they always refused it. And then, after 10 years after that, when I already moved from Krasnoyarsk to Moscow and was traveling abroad, my friend who now works in this ministry, she told me that all these years, our Ministry of Culture actually put our tours, albums, festivals at their records. Like, administration is working so well, so they don't need to give you money. They're just waiting, smoking and watching what you are doing by yourself. And the last thing, just like stories. This time in Russian World Music Awards, we have jury from Azerbaijan. And that was a reason why some other bands who have Armenian and Tajikistan members, they just refused to apply. So, I mean, it's not like Russian former USSR problems. It's also problems of musicians who do not want to cooperate with each other. So for me, sorry, but it's like Middle Asia is like somewhere there. I mean, I know that in Uzbekistan, my family, my parents just have had their honeymoon, but I have no idea where is it. Sorry. I watched flight tickets a few times, yes. It's very near, I know. So,
Kazakhstan, you should cross the
Kazakhstan. I already forgot what I was telling about. There's a story. So, okay, I'll tell you later. So I think there is only one actually person who knows everything about Middle Asian countries. How many of them? 5? Central Asia. 5. Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, and Turkmenistan.
Thank you. Yes. Politically, when Central Asian says Central Asia, we collect 5 countries: Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan. Geographically, out of our region, people collect so wider because they can include to this area to Central Asia and Azerbaijan and Afghanistan and sometimes some Pakistan and Mongolia, Siberia, and some Iranian part. Also, they say, oh, Central Asia. They see wider than we know Central Asia. We collect 5 countries, Central Asia. Yes, one of the problem is connecting with music professionals is that this area is still working on old style, on strategy, like Soviet Union period. Unfortunately, yes. Not only our countries, the countries like Belarus, Ukraine, Azerbaijan, except Georgia, I think. Yeah. This is one of the big problems. And now there is many festivals getting more, but the festivals also working and not independently. They mostly government festivals. The biggest festival in Uzbekistan, it was Sharq Taranları. In Central Asia, it was Sharq Taranları. It's a world music festival. It's still biggest. Year before, I think they founded in Kazakhstan the new festival, Spirit of Tangri, and this is amazing festival. And I didn't went yet there, but it's more flexible, more independent than our festivals, and they get growing up. They making cycle of the festival Spirit of Tangri. One is world music, one is nomadic music, one is Spirit of Tangri dance, and I think modern dance as well there. I think it's a 4 festival under this subject name, Spirit of Tangri, and all is starting from June, July, August, September. I think 4 months, each different festivals in every year. They doing these festivals. Names we know about Yıldız Usmanova, as Bastian told, and Toby worked with her, and she's in pop music. But one of the first who started traveling to Europe and giving concerts, because her program was close to world music, close to Uzbek traditional music, and from to Uzbek traditional music. And our main classic world music singer is Munajat Yulchiyeva. Still, she is one of the top. But there is some other musicians, some singers, very good makam musicians and solo musicians, solo singers. But the problem is that we don't have local managers, local agents who promote their tradition. Tony mentioned about the Jan During, ethnomusicologist. It was always like, it works always like that in that period. Jan During, Sudobakia, from US, Ted Levine, and some other ethnomusicologists. They were the key persons to connect, to bring artists from Central Asia. When they made their researches, they published the books, everything. They made many things from connected with Central Asia. After that, they changed their directions. They're not anymore close connected to Central Asia. And the traveling of Central Asian musicians stopped there. After that, there was not many groups traveled around the world, because we didn't have other promoters, other connections. And now we are trying to build our contacts, because it's a 6 or 7 year, I don't know which year. I'm every year participating at WOMEX in bringing our artists, and also bringing the people to our festival in Samarkand. Many of the professionals already have been there. And also in Kazakhstan there is a very, very good group called Turan. Yes. Recently, it's yeah. It's an amazing group, young group, it's a professional and amazing group. But many people doesn't know about this group. Yes. Yeah. But now you know. But before, yeah. But it's yeah, and also problem about the our musicians doesn't know about the new skills of promotion, making demo materials and promoting their materials, their art. I think it's because this is also maybe they don't need about it, because they can make, our musicians make money from the weddings. From weddings they make good money, but to weddings they don't play world music. In weddings they play pop music. It's why maybe they not good to make promotion materials and connect with all around the world and foreign partners.
Okay, so there are many obstacles, and you just mentioned one of them, promotion. Do you think, working with artists from Central Asia, do you think there is a market for it? But because that can also be a reason that you say that those musicians, they play at weddings, they play pop music. But when I'm in Holland, I'm not waiting for pop music from your country, but I like traditional music. But do you think, you have a lot of experience, that the market is big enough to bring groups from Central Asia? And can you mention, except Yıldız Usmanova, which is really the artist that's still in my mind, because she was very successful, also because of the manager in Holland, Mahindra. He was really working hard, and I think he was booking her a little too much, because I remember one year she came 3 times to Holland. Well, Holland is not such a big country. So in the end, no, everybody said, yeah, we had Yıldız for 6 times already. But do you have any suggestion how you can make it more popular? And what is there a role for the government? Or do you think they do have to do it themselves? They have to be more active? Like what you were saying, doing more promotion. Have you any suggestion?
I do. As you mentioned, how this region, you can divide it into 2 parts. Is the more Farsi, Iranian influenced part, and the more Turkic part. So this is two main languages who are there, a part of the Russian heritage in the communication that there is. Now you have to know that in Central Asia and also in Iran and in all these parts, there's something happening there that's more important than New Year and Christmas together. It's Nevruz. It's the festival of spring. Now this is a pre-religious festival that is really important. People, they get the new dresses for their children, they clean the house. It's going over from the dark winter period to the plants growing. There's a lot of things happening on that, people visiting their families. There is festive music around that, and it's something what we know in Europe is Eastern. The Christianity transformed it into Eastern, but it was also in the European heritage. Now, this celebration around spring, to do that is a possibility of mobilizing all the diaspora around it, and even mobilizing the Turkish, the Iranian, the Kurdish communities around that, and make an activity on that, and you get easily support on that, because it's the most important event in the year over there. So that is one way. Then another thing is well, I work in a center where there's a lot of classical music presented, but we want to present the non-European classical music also, like the Iranian, the Ottoman, and yeah, the makam. So you can make a series on the makam that can go very far, can go from Morocco till China, and present this real refined ancient classical music in a good way. What we see, for instance, that is happening with the work that Ross Daly is doing in Crete, in Udetsi, on renewal of the traditional music by younger people, by getting together, but doing this in the respect. We see that there are possibilities on that in this Central Asian music, that there are young people who are interested in that, working on that. Of course, this is not a real commercial things. The best Ottoman female singer from Turkey at the moment, the only record she made is a jazz record, but she is the best Ottoman music singer. But there can be support from the cultural institutions for that, and opening this to a broader audience. So these are two lines I see. A third line is this Turkic line that I mentioned. So you can walk from London to Korea if you only speak Turkish and get your way everywhere, and there is a connection between these Turkic cultures, and this makes also possibility of broadening an audience on that. I don't know the new Yudus Usmanova. She was she was phenomenal. So he will know.
She's still star. She's still active in pop music, mainly 100% in pop music. Maybe and program also, repertoire also. In that time when you invited to, when she performed in Holland. And if you compare this program as a totally moved to in pop, not traditional part, I think she not stopped singing. Sorry, I forgot the question. New Yıldız. Yes, New Yıldız. There is another Yıldız. Yıldız Turdieva. She's makam singer. But Tony, you know, we talked about real makam performing yesterday, if you remember. This is also the different question. For example, if we call about the Arabic makam or Azerbaijani mugam, they have free performance. They have free performances in makam, performing makam and mugam. But in Uzbek makams and as Uyghur makams, we have fixed makams. There is no free performances. There is no improvisation. In Azerbaijan, we can feel it. You can feel it in Azerbaijan makam, but in Uzbek makam, it's a fixed cycles, continuous from 15 minutes until half an hour. Yeah, and ghazals fixed. And also the problem is if we ask the young singers, even in Yıldız, are you often performing the cycles of makam? And she said no, because there is no place where they can perform makam with cycle, whole makam. Because I told you that many people performing on weddings, and there is no concerts of makam performance, unfortunately. And I organize these concerts, and also it's very difficult to find the performance of real makam from real program, because when they finish the graduates conservatory, after that they don't play makams, because there is audience is less, and There is no possibility, and also there is no possibility make money through makam concerts. So less audience and even for free. Yes, when you organize a makam concert, real traditional folk music concerts, you can also make it for free. Yeah, and also and for less audience. For example, I try to do every month the concert of traditional music. It's my venue capacity is 70 people, but we can manage the place for 110 people. And I organize the Shashmakam festival, which only Shashmakam. There will be performed only Shashmakam, and and generation is young. Performers of generation, because nowadays they performing this makam because they just finished the conservatory, or some of them studying at the conservatory, because they performing still. And after after the conservatory of 10 years, and they can forget performing these cycles of makam. And also Gulzoda, we saw the concert of in Brussels, and she was selected Womex official 2016 Santiago de Compostela. She is one of the good performers of and traditional music and real makams and also folk music. Yeah, and also if we talk about the epic singing heritage, and also in Siberia there is a very rich heritage, and also in Mongolia and Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and Turkmenistan. But I just recently heard that in Tajikistan, mountain part also they're finding some epic singing heritage roots. And epic singing, it's also a bit difficult to promote this heritage. They also only in Kazakhstan sometimes they organize such festivals of epic singing, and also Turkey. Turkey also invites some epic singers from the region.
You were just mentioning 5 minutes ago, 10 minutes ago, that one of the problems about the music from Central Asia is there's a lack of promotion. And what do you think about the role of the media? Myself, I'm a freelance journalist. Simon is a journalist. I work for the radio, but to be honest, I hardly play music from Central Asia, if I play it. Do you think we as a journalist or as a media has a role, and what can we do to make it more accessible for European ears? You mentioned the example Jewish harp mixing with hip hop. Is that a suggestion, or is that too cheap? Do you have an idea how you can make music from Central Asia, which is not always easy? I must admit, it's not always, you don't pick it up like a pop song. Sometimes you really have to sit down and listen. And do you have any idea how you can make it more accessible for Western ears, if I may say that?
It's not easy. It's not easy even for our local audience. Why it's not easy for local audience? I always, and when I ask from the government, you should support our projects because we are performing live performance, live makams, and they tell me on TV we are putting these makams on TV in many channels. It's TV, it's recorded makams. If we continue, if we save this heritage, we should support the live performance projects. This is also, I think it's the same with European audience, because when we perform makam, to listen to this makam, it should be live performances. Live performance. Otherwise, it's difficult. Yes, it's possible. You can make listen on CDs, but in CDs also, good CDs which recorded live with live performance, not studio, because makam, when singer and performer can sing makam very with 100%, 150% energy, with spirit, when it's concert, not on studio. If it's for studio, for recording makam, I don't say it's real performances. When it's live performances on stage with audience, and this is 150% with energy, with spirit, and they can perform. Foreign media can only help for us to writing these materials with professional informations like Jean During, connecting with professionals like Jean During and Sylvain Roy nowadays in France, and also Ted Levin, and also we can mention the many other contacts from Uzbekistan. But this also the problem is language. So in Uzbekistan and also in Kazakhstan as well, I think in Tajikistan also, many scholars, many musicians doesn't speak English except Russian, for example.
Russians also don't speak English. No, we don't.
Yeah, no. Russians also don't speak English. Yeah, this is one of the main problems. Yeah, and also how excuse me, Simon, to connect with Central Asia is main thing is main way is only through embassies, and also through international organizations. With independent, if any independent organization in Central Asia, it's difficult because, as I told you, mentioned its own style, its old system working, and the government can recognize only through embassies and international organizations. The projects or everything about if you're interested to connect with this country. And also Turkmenistan still impossible even for us. Even we are neighbor, it's difficult. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, I was just, you hinted at one very important thing when you said a lot of the musicians in Uzbekistan are going and working at weddings and they're getting paid a lot of money. Maybe they're not terribly interested in coming to play in Europe for not very much money, even at some prestigious Budapest or Mupa or London or Holland festival. You know, this is also an issue, I think.
Yes, no, they interested to play abroad. They interested, but to prepare this all materials, all professional demo materials and professional program, it needs time. They don't have time to prepare everything because wedding is going everyday life. No. Okay.
No, they really don't know how to do this because, for example, in this, like our Russian World Music Awards, we just created it just to show people that, like, to bands, they're applying and we're like, what do you have? Where are your pictures? Where you see your video? Like Simon knows, we were preparing like for jury, like everything, not because jury will be listening the whole SoundCloud, album. It's just because we were telling to all these 300 bands that you need SoundCloud. They're like, oh no, it's so difficult, we're not gonna do this. Like, come on, there is SoundCloud. So mostly for awards, we were trying to cheat them. Like, you have friends who have cameras, right? Just stay there, it's a good place, and just make a video, for 1 minute, like, and what? Just upload that to YouTube, then it's gonna be easier to reach your music. Like, we can do this. Yes, you can do this. Like, okay, music. Now you can, like, you have phones. So they don't have SoundCloud. They don't have YouTube. They don't speak English. They have no idea what press release is and how it looks like. Usually it's like the list of the names, like 100 names with all former musicians, you know, playing there. It's like, we're so good, you know, and some pictures like sitting like this. So it's, I don't know, this is the first problem. The second problem is, first of all, our music, Asian and Siberian, and it's totally different. Folk music is totally different from Western, from West. So it's normal for us to sit with our company, you know, long Siberian evening, you know, eating, no drinking, we don't drink alcohol. So we are just sitting and singing folk songs like for 1 hour about a girl who killed her husband. This is fun. Then another one when the husband kills his wife because he was so tired for 2 hours. The same with, 1 hour performance. It's different. It's totally different. And when I come, for example, to Amsterdam, to some jazz festival, I'm just dying. I just can't listen. Like, are they rehearsing? Or they're playing? Okay, where is the folk here? No folk. So, okay, where is the wine? So, I don't know, I drink there more than in Krasnodar. So, it's typical mentality, it's typical music. And bands I like with epic songs from Altai Mountains, which I'm crying when they sing about it, about the heroes. So all these guys just, with costume, sit on the floor, on the stage, put one microphone because, like, why do they need, like, 10 of them? And they start singing about their heroes for 20 minutes without any drums, without any, jumping, like mixing everything, just doing something like this. And this pure is very beautiful. And we love it. I'm not sure how it doesn't fit any Western world music festival, because here we need headliners, we need someone loud, we need someone more energetic, and Siberian music and Asian music is about meditation. It's about, connection with the universe. It's about it's totally, in our country, it's totally shamanic things. So if you're getting some, pamphlets, you're just feeling alive after 1 hour of listening about the hero, this is good. This is the best music ever. So I can listen for 1 hour, just guy telling this story about from back to 700 years ago. And I prefer it more than any other guys with electric guitar.
Maybe one word. Sorry. So you had just half a sentence that if MCs and hip hop guys, along with traditional musicians, is it cheap or not cheap? Yeah, but I assume that, like, for my experience, it really attracted people. It really attracted people. It really people who have never ever would have listened to Central Asian music came to this program that I organized, and they watched, oh my God, that exists. And that was the first time when they heard throat singing or köme. And going back to this meditative, that it's very difficult to bring this meditative music to European world music festivals. I think if you organize thematic festivals, thematic events, where there's a bigger production, which is like loud and dancey and colorful and very appealing to even younger generation, along it, I think it's possible to keep the audience and show them something that needs more attention, that needs, which is in a smaller room, which is in a relaxed zone of a festival, and people will be attracted because they will understand that, yeah, that's the core of the thing. That's where the big show came from originally. So that's the real spiritual background of the whole thing. But of course, you need a bigger project to put these smaller things along, and I think it's an education that you have to start, and probably thematic events are themed events are a good way to do it.
Tony, you were trying to say something in my ear, but
well, no, last March I brought a singer from a country I didn't know it existed, called Kalmutia. Yeah, it's a ex-Soviet, yeah, but it's strange. It's Mongolians living somewhere near the Black Sea. No, where is it? Kalmut. So it was through connection in Paris, and it was epic singing, and well, I got an audience of about as much as Hilde has on her festival for a fiddler player, about 120, and the people were really amazed and interested in it. So it's industry. It's not about this size. If you do that for 500 people, it will not have the same effect. You have to have it intimate, and there is an audience for it. If you say there's no audience for the Shasmakam, I'm referring to the man from Mannheim here who was saying, look, there's a Turkish guy who made a school because he wanted to learn Kanun, and you have all this diaspora here who is interested in identity and roots. If you bring it, you can get interest for it, but it shouldn't be an interest for a 1,000 people hall. It's you can work. You see this commercially if you have offer and demand. But you cannot have demand if you do not have the offer there. So you start offering it, like with Jews harp and these things, and people get interested, and it's spreading and it's going further. And you build up some audience, and then you see what interest you can find in other audiences, be it Turkic-speaking people of Central Asian diaspora or other things, and you try to reach them. And now with Facebook, it's quite easy with the words. And I did a concert with a Uyghur singer, and there were 2 Uyghur people with a mobile phone. They filled the hall. It went everywhere. So it's just of setting the idea that. This music is rich and is important to bring to an audience, and then when you do it, you can, it's just putting the goal in it, and you are there. We don't need John During in anymore to tell us who to bring. So.
About demo materials, Hilde, I sent you the links, and there is now new links. When you the whole materials I'm sending for festivals, these materials, these photos, informations, and videos made by myself. When I ask from the musicians, please give me your photos, please give me your videos, and I don't use this because I never use. At the beginning, maybe if I send first time about this artist, maybe I use this. But at the end, nowadays, I totally change it because I do program by myself. Whole 1.5 hour program I do by myself. Okay, we play this, and also a group from Bukhara, 6 musicians, all young. Musicians, I changed their program totally different, and now they are one of the in in Uzbekistan and also in Central, one of the professional best groups, but still they don't have enough offer. For example, because there is market is big in the world. When Central Asian musicians goes to abroad, they should competition is very big, and there as the group is young and not much concerts yet on their list. And yeah, this is one of the what I am doing, because I do when to working with artists for promotion abroad. Program, I've changed program. I do photos by myself and videos by myself. Everything, yeah. Yeah. That's.
You want to say? Oh. Well, it's almost time. We still have to eat, and there's at least one question.
I'm Hilde from the Further Festival in Norway. It's not a question, but it's more a comment. I agree very much with you saying that we have to offer something before we have the demand, and this idea that someone has to, that we have to adapt to the Western audience. I must say I hate this because I think it's not the right way. You can do that also, but for me, and as a festival organizer, I'm always thinking of not to have every concert should be in balance economically. I look at the total budget and have some big concerts, some smaller concerts, and we have staged many artists from Central Asia. And there is a real interest. It's interest in the real thing, not a juice harp with a hip hopper. Maybe that also, but I don't do that. So I think people are open and curious, and we must trust in that. Every child is curious. Everyone likes to have a very positive surprise. And that is how I build the program of the Further Festival. We have big venues. We have 30 different venues. And we stage Makam in a small hall for 150 persons, or maybe only for 100 persons sometimes, maybe only for 50 persons. And it's okay, because it's a part of the total budget and the total programming that we are doing. And people, even if they don't know anything about it, if you build this trust with your audience, they will always seek for new things, and they will seek for the real things. And I think that, at least for me, that we have public support, also it's my responsibility to present something new, not only that what people like from before and that I know I will get audience. We have to challenge the audience. I think it's our responsibility, and the music is so wonderful, so why shouldn't we show the wonderful diversity of the music also from Central Asia?
Okay. Well, thank you for your very wise words. I completely agree with you. It's time now. We have to eat, and in 10 minutes time the first showcase starts already, so I don't know how we're going to do it, but we will manage it. I'd like to thank the panel for the input. It was a pleasure talking to you, pleasure to listen to your suggestions, and I think maybe in the future there will be a change, whatever. I'm always optimistic. And I'd like to thank you. I'd like to thank the audience, the listeners, and well, have a pleasant evening. Okay.